Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We have been merging the stream since the beginning of the football season, and now that we are post-bye and into Steelers week, we are very much into an American election that all of us, and I've rolled the sleeves up on my El Guapo shirt over in Catonsville. I want to give a shout-out to our friends out over there. Brand new, wide open, come on in, social distancing in play, take a little carry out. I know Don's big on that as well. My wife and I are going to stop over at State Fair, get some chicken and waffles this weekend. Big thanks to Evan Brown. Also, the entire Fadley's family, they're coming to Catonsville, but they're still down at Lexington Market. They want you to know you can ship those crab cakes anywhere in the country, one click. Send a little Maryland love to the holidays to anybody you want. One click at Fadley's, where we would be having some crab cakes with some of these guests. Also, our friends at Taharka have launched a new flavor this week. It is called Black is Beautiful. It is a chocolate stout in conjunction with our friends at Monumental Brewing. This is the peanut butter cup. Our friends at Taharka make ice cream, and they ship ice cream to you. They hand deliver it. They deliver it right to your door during the holidays. I'm going to tell you more about that as we get up on Thanksgiving and I hand churn the eggnog. Last but never least, our friends at Moeller and Gary Realty. Jeff Moeller, a frequent visitor here, son of Don Moeller, and you know they don't agree on everything, and Jeff certainly knows more about the real estate market and all these incredible rates and things that are going on. We're going to have Jeff on next week and talk to him. You can find him at Moeller and Gary Realty. Don, one of our first guests was a pollster here on Baltimore Positive almost 2 years ago now. You know several of them. We're about to do a polling segment. I have always held my nose up a little bit because I lived in the Arbitron world of fake numbers and fake statistics and fake science. But, you know, the more I come around on this and I read your polls and I even see your little sheets you make with your electoral college every day based on these polls, right, that this is a poll segment, and this is where I sit back and as a citizen, I try to learn a little bit about why Joe Biden's leading now, but why none of us should be going to bed and, you know, thinking that we're going to wake up and he's going to win on Wednesday.
Welcome to Patrick Gonzales, president of Gonzales Research and Media Services. Patrick, I kidded you right before we came on, and you're a Baltimore Positive alum. I said, if ever an industry was under the microscope, it is your industry. Are you? This is a crazy question, but maybe not so crazy, Patrick. Are you worried about the industry itself if things go south next week?
Not really. I think there's a very good chance that things are going to go south next week, but no, I'm not worried. We'll see what happens.
Well, what do you mean by that? So what, define what things go south mean to you. Give me the crystal ball. What do you, as a scientist in this field, think's going to happen?
No, sir, I don't have a crystal ball, and the problem is none of us do. But many of us pretend we do. And then we get people such as yourself hyped up that we can do it. We can't predict the future, but we can predict the past. So the current numbers that I'm seeing are Biden on the national average from Real Clear Politics is about +8 or 9. That translates, guys, into Biden winning by about 10 million votes. If, as expected, 145 to 150 million people are going to vote. I don't think that's going to happen. But ultimately, presidential election is 51 separate contests, and it's determined by the Electoral College. So we will see how it goes the next 4 days, 5 days.
It's going to seem like 4. It's going to seem like 4 years, Patrick, for those of us who.
Done. I put my poll out Tuesday, and it seemed like a lifetime ago.
Well, tell us what you polled on Tuesday. I saw it came out, but tell our listeners who may have missed it, what did you poll? What did you learn?
Okay. Well, first we did the presidential election, but being Maryland, no big surprise. We had Joe Biden up over President Trump, 58-33, a 25-point spread. That kind of, to put that into some context, Hillary Clinton won the state by 26 last time. There's some murmuring about Biden breaking LBJ's record of a 31-point spread over Barry Goldwater in 64. I'm not holding my breath for that.
What was that number? The Goldwater spread? What was it?
It was 31 points.
31 points. Wow. Okay.
So so we did that, but to see if there was any big surprises, which there weren't. But then we talked about some issues that we had explored in the spring, and I think I came on and talked with you guys about dealing with the coronavirus and some of the impact that's had on Maryland citizens.
Well, Patrick, I want to read one of my Bibles, for better or worse, is 538.
Yes,
538.
Yes.
So 538 this morning, and I'm going to take just a minute or two and read an analysis. I, like everyone else, and I'm sure as a pollster, when you saw ABC News, Washington Post come out yesterday with Biden up 17 in Wisconsin, I turned to my wife and I said, they're really a good polling. They're reputable. I said,
right.
but Joe Biden is not up 17 in Wisconsin. So let me read what 538 says and have you comment on the other side.
Sure.
It says, once in a blue moon, you see a poll that makes you blink twice to make sure you're not seeing things. This morning's ABC News Washington Post survey of Wisconsin was just such a poll. It showed Joe Biden 17 points, not a typo, ahead of Trump, 57 to 40% among likely voters. That's key. It wasn't registered voters, right? It was likely voters. Gives it a little more merit. To put it mildly, this is a stunning margin in what is supposed to be one of the most competitive swing states in the country, a place Trump carried by less than 1 percentage point in 2016. All of this is not, and this is not an easy poll to disregard, because ABC News Washington Post appears to what we consider to be, and this is what I want to get into, Patrick, the gold standard methodology, meaning they use live phone interviews, call cell phones as well as landlines, and participate in the American Association for Public Opinion Research's Transparency Initiative. So by all accounts, this is a reputable pollster that somehow in their sample, this is where Nestor and the non-believers say, I told you, come up with Joe Biden being up 17. What the hell happens when the poll comes back like that, Patrick?
Well, let me just put that into a little perspective. Ironically enough, ABC put out a poll on October 23rd, 2016. And in that poll, they had Hillary Clinton beating Donald Trump by a margin of 32 points among college-educated white women. On election day, they did an exit poll. Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump by 6 points among college-educated white women. So, did that block move that dramatically in a 10-day period, 2-week period? I don't think so. So when I hear a poll that has Joe Biden up 17 points in Wisconsin, I say,
But Patrick, here's my question. I think we all did. I mean, I didn't see one. I mean, certainly the reps from both camps don't believe that poll's accurate. I think everyone believes at this moment, based on reliable polling, and I think from what I hear on the internals, that Biden is up somewhere 6-7 points in those battlegrounds, maybe a little more in Michigan, maybe 10 in Michigan, but 6 or 7 in Wisconsin, 4 or 5 in Pennsylvania. So I think the question, and I know I'm asking for my partner in crime here, is the sample wrong? Or is the,
you know what I think?
Yeah, what happened?
Let me tell you what I think, and let me try, because I got to give a speech in front of a bunch of people tonight. I'm going to try this out, because this is my theory.
There you go.
As we get closer and closer to this election, I am more and more convinced that Donald Trump is going to win the Electoral College on Tuesday night. And quite frankly, I don't think we're going to have to wait till Wednesday. And let me tell you, and here's the cool part, maybe. And
That's
I
not
don't
cool.
think
First of all, that first part is not a cool part, but go ahead.
And I don't think the polls are wrong, okay? I think they are limited. I think they have been rendered incapable of measuring the whole universe. So let me briefly try to explain what I'm talking about. 150 million people, just for argument's sake, are going to vote in this election. When they say Joe Biden, and I'm going to keep the numbers simple, when they say in a national poll, Joe Biden is up by 10 points, which is about what they're saying, over Donald Trump, what they are saying is a truly accurate poll would reflect all 150 million voters, and Joe Biden is up by 10. 10 of 150 million is 15 million margin. Here is what I think is going on, and I think is what's going to happen Tuesday night. And again, I'm going to keep the numbers simple. The total universe of voters will ultimately be 150 million. But I don't think the polling is reflecting that total universe. I think the polling is reflecting a universe, and I'm going to throw out some numbers just to keep the math simple, of 130 million. I think there are 20 million voters that are in polling seclusion. And they have one thing in common. They're all supporting Trump. And the reason they're in seclusion is because 4 years ago, Trump voters were deplorables. Now they are racist and worse. So they're not going to talk to anybody. So this is my theory, guys. Nothing but a theory, can't be proven until after the fact. I think in a universe of 130 million, Joe Biden is up on Donald Trump by 10 points. I believe that. And if you do the math, and I'm gonna, just so I have my calculator, I'm gonna bring my calculator out. Joe Biden is beating Donald Trump 55-45 when all is said and done if he maintains his 10-point margin. 130 million times 55 130 times 0.55 is 71 million. Is 71,500,000 votes. Okay? Now, out of that 130, Donald Trump is getting 45%. So 130 million times 45% is 58.5 million. Okay? So Joe Biden is up 13 million votes. But guess what? There are 20 million voters, remember, that took a hike in this theory of mine? And you add 20 million to 58.5, and now all of a sudden, Trump's got 78,500,000 to Biden's 71,000,000.
You think Trump's going to get 15 million more votes than he got 4 years ago?
Guys, I was throwing out the example. I was throwing out an example to try to illustrate how the polling can only measure what it can get hold of.
Well, I think they're
go in and measure.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Okay.
You're singing my song, though, when you're saying that it's unknowable because you can't find the right people.
Well, yeah, Nestor, I don't need to say anymore. That sums basically up my thought. Okay, it is not. I can't prove it, but I guarantee you, if I could really quickly give you an example of something similar. In 1936, Literary Digest was on about a 5-election roll where they'd send out ballots, they'd get them returned, and they'd make these accurate predictions. In 1936, they sent out 10 million ballots to people with cars and telephones. They got 5 million back. They predicted with great assurity that Alf Landon was going to defeat FDR in a landslide. Well, what happened? FDR ended up getting 61% of the vote that year. Oops. Well, what happened? Well, they
only poll rich people.
Right. Okay, but let me tell you something. In 1932, they came within a half a point of accurately predicting FDR's margin over Herbert Hoover. And guess what? They sent out that year 20 million ballots to only people with cars and telephones. The same skewed sample. Well, what's the difference? The difference was in 1932, everybody was sick of Hoover. Didn't matter.
My father's been dead 30 years, and he's still pissed at Hoover.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I am too.
All right, Patrick. So then if I hear you correctly, and maybe it's not 100% analogous, and you will correct me, it sounds to me like you're saying the Trafalgar Group, which has this sort of mysterious hidden Trump voter sociological factors that they built into their models. They claim to be the only one that called the Trump victory in 2016. You're saying that perhaps in the future, pollsters have to move towards the Trafalgar philosophy or not?
No, I'm not saying that. Nothing against Trafalgar. Let me tell you what I think would happen.
Well, tell folks, first of all, I don't want this to be too inside baseball. Tell folks, did I describe Trafalgar correctly?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think they're guys out of Georgia, and he works with. Yeah, no, I think he did predict it well in 16. I think. Let me tell you what I think, though. I think if Patrick Gonzales, the preeminent pollster, not only in Maryland, not only in the country, but in the universe, if he did a poll, a national poll, I have a very strong suspicion that I would come back with a poll that would have Biden up between 8 and 10. That is what I think. I see in Maryland what I got. If I was a betting man, which I am, I'd set the line at 58% in Maryland, guys. I'd take the under on that. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. In other words,
Patrick, go to Nestor's point then, because this is killing me, because you are emboldening my partner here, who's now going to beat the daylights out of me, because what I hear you saying then is that my Bible, 538, and Real Clear Politics average that I look at 5 or 6 times a day to see if there's a change because I'm so worried about this election, you're saying I shouldn't be looking at that because I can't trust any of those polls, Patrick.
Patrick, I'm a guy that did sports, right? So the only thing I could say about this is back in the 90s, we'd have the NFL draft, and there'd be Mel Kiper, and everybody would have a prediction. Right. And back then, I was one of those guys that, like, they would talk to me, and I would know what's going on a little bit back then. Now they all lie so freely that I'm so glad I'm not in that industry at all, because I don't think it's predictive. You know what I mean? In that way, they're so secretive in 32 places. I feel like this is a little bit along that line where everybody is secretive, and for all the reasons that you've pointed out. But I also feel like a little bit as a fan of all this is where Don and I are a little different. I don't really put that much stock in who the Ravens are drafting. I just wait for the draft. You know, like predicting it for me doesn't affect it. But I know when Don's lived in the inside that the polls affect how people will vote. I don't know that that's the case this week, that anybody says, well, the poll says Biden's got it, I'm not going to vote. I think there definitely was a little bit of that 4 years ago where polls affected some people to feel like I don't need to vote. I think this election might be different in that way.
Yeah, no, hey, I agree with you as far as, and I'm in the biz. I need to get with it a little, but as far as your analogy, I don't give a flying hoot who predicts who the Ravens are going to draft. I can wait. And in a lot of ways, guys, I can wait till Tuesday. Okay? I mean, I love this. I love talking with you guys. I love coming up, kind of trying to figure things out. But I want you to dig this, guys. I think Trump is going to win on Tuesday. And I also don't think the polls are wrong. Okay, and let me reiterate it. Patrick did a poll, a national poll, to try to gauge popular vote. My sense is I would come up with a poll that has Biden up somewhere between 8 and 10 points. And it gets back to what we talked about earlier. I know numbers are tough, and they're tough for me. I'm not being condescending. But the best way I can describe it is to think in the terms I tried to explain, which is 150 million is ultimately going to be the universe of voters. In a perfect world, in a truly open environment where a pollster is going out, the one predicate that is critical, that is sine qua non, is every one of the universe has to have at least an equal chance of being selected, being interviewed. And my point is, my theory, I'm not saying this is definitive, this is the truth. I don't know at this point. I suspect it is. My point is, it is impossible to give all 150 million voters an equal opportunity of being polled because, again, according to my theory, and I'm just throwing out this number randomly, 20 million have taken a hike. They are in polling seclusion.
Patrick, man, I love this too. I mean, I love this back and forth. I'm going to push back on a couple of things there. Number one, you guys don't poll 120 or 130 people. Like in the poll that you just did in Maryland, what'd you poll? 1,200 people? How many did you poll? 800. You polled 820.
He polled 800 people who were willing to be polled.
But for the
there's plenty of people voting that are never going to tell him anything.
No, but wait a minute. That's supposed to be that's where this discussion is important. I don't think, Patrick, and I say this, very, very affectionately, I don't think you can say on one hand the polls got it right, but the person they're predicting is going to win isn't going to win. Because when you poll 826 people in the state of Maryland, the people who have hired you, or Malia or whoever is out there polling, they believe that you have got scientific reason to put together the sample that you did, that your sample will indeed reflect the final vote total in Maryland. Is that not fair?
No one, Don, hold on now. No pollster ever has been able to predict the future. That is where the problem is introduced. If you go in with the assumption, if I had a client that went in with the assumption that I could predict the future, and I'm being precise here, guys, okay? They are mistaken, and I will disabuse them quickly if they think that that is what I am capable. And if any pollster pretends that he is capable of that, he is or she is kidding her client, most importantly, kidding herself or himself.
Well, Patrick, you believe, but Patrick, I'm going to push back again. You believe that the poll you did recently is reflective that about 60% of Marylanders are going to vote for Joe Biden, right?
Let me tell you what I believe. Okay, we're going to go again to what I said. I believe that around 3 million voters are going to vote in Maryland on Tuesday. Okay, I believe, and we're going to use the same kind of numbers. 20 is what, 15%. Let's just, for argument's sake, say 15%. 15% of 3 million is 450,000. Let's round it to 500 to keep it simple. In theory, when I do a poll, all 3 million voters have to have an equal opportunity, an equal chance of being selected. I would submit that there is a chance that in the state of Maryland, as an example, the polling universe needs to be 3 million, but it's not, because 500,000 have gone into seclusion. So actually you are measuring a universe of 2.5 million. And within that universe of 2.5 million, I had, Malia and I both had Biden up by about 30. Let's see how it turns out.
All right, so let's build that.
Don, how can I measure something that I can't get hold of? Well,
because I'm going to listen. I love you, Malia, and the whole group here. I'm going to ask you again. Then
I'm the naysayer here. I'm going to have fun at the end of all of this. But go ahead.
Why not then? If you are more and more convinced as this evolves that there's this uncounted or unwilling participant, Why not
Right.
build that number then into your algorithm as well to account for a more realistic number?
Okay, let me ask you a question, Don. How long is a piece of string?
Yeah, I mean, I
What does
get the
that mean? Wait a
facetious
minute
part
now.
of this.
What does that mean? How long is a piece of
No, hold
string?
on. How long, Don, how long is a piece of string?
Grab one. Let's say I've got one in my hand, it's that long.
Right, exactly. If you had one in your hand, you could measure it. But I just asked you how long a piece of string is, and I wasn't going to show you the string. How can you measure something you can't get a hold of? Patrick, go measure every cow
Well,
on this
hang
property.
on for a
And they're
second.
all- let me finish. Go on and measure every cow in this property. And they're all in the barn. And I go in the barn, and there are 10 cows, and they each weigh 500 pounds. The cows will weigh 5,000 pounds. But there are 10 out in the field that I'm never going to find. You can't measure what you can't find.
Well, if you're saying there's a half a million people that can't be found, or whatever that number would be, then the assumption would be
Right.
they're going to vote. You have no
Right.
idea who they're going to vote for. But under
No,
a scenario,
you do have an idea who they're going to vote for. That's the whole point.
they're all voting for Trump.
In theory, this is a theory. I am not
Okay.
declaiming this as a fact. I don't know.
Well,
You
dude,
can't
how
know
about
this.
this? And I'll say this.
I love this.
I voted for Biden, which shouldn't shock anybody, and I wouldn't take your call or Malia's call or anybody's call because I'm not taking anybody's call. So, you're never going to know that I was going to vote for Biden.
You wouldn't take my call? Come
No,
on.
like not like that.
But
I want to ask you this. This is why I want the floor here for. Just give me 1 second on this.
All right, I'm going on. For everybody out there, I'm going on mute to give Nestor equal time here.
Just because I'm the naysayer here, and this is my point. You're predicting a Trump victory. You're predicting that Donald Trump will be the president of the United States. That's your gut prediction.
My gut forecast, I hate the word prediction. I am not a prophet. My forecast for Tuesday is cloudy. And it's the Trump, this is what I ultimately think is going to happen. I think when all the votes are said and done, I think the popular vote is going to be very, very, very close. I think Trump likely will win a slight plurality, but it doesn't matter. It's going to be a lot closer than the 2.9 million Hillary Clinton won 4 years ago. And I think Trump's going to win. I think Trump's going to win more electoral votes this time than he did last time. That's what my instinct tells me.
Okay, so but is there right this moment? And I don't follow this ish, at all. I mean, not the polls. Right. I mean, I follow issues. I follow all of it. I don't listen to this clown get up every night and give hate speech. I don't do any of that. Right. But I'm in the world of it. I would just say I don't hear anybody saying they have a poll, a legitimate poll, not a Fox News, not something that comes out of the Coke basement, a legitimate poll that has Donald Trump winning. Is there such a thing?
As far as I know, the RCP, Real Clear Politics average, has Biden up by 8 or 9 points.
Yeah, and there is one. I'm unmuted now, so I'm back,
Go
ladies
ahead.
and gentlemen. Let Nestor let me unmute myself. There is one, Rasmussen, which leads me to a question for Patrick. Has him up by 1.
Okay,
now, Rasmussen, and I think I've asked you this before, Patrick. Rasmussen is generally seen, fairly or not, as a pollster whose polls typically give Republicans more favorable results. Does Patrick Gonzales have a reputation in the field? And I should know this, and I don't. Do you have a reputation as being friendlier in terms of your results to one party or another?
And I've been doing this here in the state for 35 years, and because it's Maryland, I've worked with many Democrats, many Republicans, a couple of independents. And I think the company and I have a reputation for at times angering Democrats, other times angering Republicans. And I think if that's the case, then we're doing a pretty good job. But I would like to, I talk about my instinct, and I want, if I can talk to Nestor about this.
I'll go back on mute. I'm going back on mute.
You don't have to leave. I wasn't trying to make you go. but my instinct is based on my thought. And this is my thought. And it really boils down to two things I cannot get my head around. Number one, even given the devastation that the pandemic has caused on our economy, we are in a pretty good economic place overall in this country. I cannot see the voters, again, overall, turning out this economy, okay? And number two, and this gets short shrift, is never ever talked about, but I cannot wrap my head around the pathetically poor performance of Joe Biden in the early primary contest. In Iowa, we don't really know what happened because they never gave us the final results, but we do know that Biden got obliterated, ending up in single digits. In New Hampshire, he got decimated, again, in single digits. In Nevada, Bernie creamed him, okay? Now, those mean something. Can I prove it? No, I can't.
The Bernie
prove it.
voter is not turning out for Don, I don't think. I just don't think that's happening, so.
Well, let me give you an update. While you guys made me go on mute, I jumped back on real clear again, and Rasmussen now has Biden up 1. So
okay,
again,
so every poll in
every
the
poll.
world right now, every legitimate poll in the world
Correct.
has Biden winning. So therefore, what does happen to the industry and what becomes of this in the mind of somebody like me who doesn't follow it because I don't trust it, because I don't think it's knowable. It's no offense to Malia or you when she calls it science and you call it science, and the Arbitron people starved me.
Don't put any words in my mouth. I don't call it science. I call it art and science, and I call it more art than science.
Fair enough, whatever it is. But if it's data, then it's science. It has been called science or portrayed as a science. I call it unknowable, and I would just call this in my Dundalk parlance, the sort of the Unabomber thing. There's so many people out living on a farm that come in and don't talk to any. There's a lot more of that in America than I ever realized, and nobody that talks to anybody. And they're not on Facebook, and they're not on Twitter, and they're not on LinkedIn, but they vote, and you're not going to find them. And that's why I've always struggled with whatever the science, the art, whatever you would call it, because you're telling me that all of this money, billions of dollars, tell us, all of us, that Joe Biden's going to win, and everyone's nervous, and this guy is no doubt going to declare victory by 10 o'clock, and 38 to 42% of the country is going to eat that up.
Right. Well, first of all, I'm going to be in Dundalk tonight. I'm looking forward. I'm going to the Seasoned Mariner to speak to a group of about 100 fine folk, and I'm very much looking forward. I love Dundalk.
Let him know you spent breakfast with a Dundalk High Hall of Famer. Tell him, Mulder. Come on.
I will.
Tell him I was even wearing Kelly Green.
He's going to end up singing the alma
mater. Let each fellow join our chorus, echo far and near. There we go, see? He did the Mount St. Joe win last week.
Patrick Gonzales, the president of Gonzales Research and Media Services. Hey, Patrick, what all the polling you've done and just your sense as you out there and talking to people, what is behind, take the president out for a minute, what's behind Trumpism, what we call this fascination in the United States right now of Trumpism? What is it that drives 60, 70 million voters to embrace this sort of blow it all up philosophy?
Yeah, no, I think you're framing it wrong. I think that's the problem. It's not Trumpism. Trump is the vehicle, but it's the ideas that he talks about. It's sort of, I guess the best way to describe it is sort of the more traditional kind of focus on this country. Some choose to focus on the problems and call it a systemically racist country. I think that is hogwash. And as I will lay as Exhibit 1, there are 4 people on 2 major tickets that have an opportunity to become the most powerful human being on this earth. One of them is black and one of them is female. If we are so systemically racist, explain to me how that works. Again, it's
Well, I'd be glad. That's
it's
another. We'll have you back on another day, because that's why I love when you and I go. Because I totally disagree with that. I think we are systemically
Hey, Don,
racist,
let me ask you a question.
and I think there's
Don,
an answer for that question.
Hey, Don, you were alive in the 1960s?
Of course.
Okay. Was the Baltimore City Police Department racist in the 1960s?
Yes.
Of course it was. And you're telling me it's racist today compared to that? Is that what you're telling me?
I am saying that there is an element of systemic racism across the now. Let me preface this, Patrick, so it doesn't get taken out of context, because it's a very complex topic. I believe that, as Dr. King said one day, and I'll mess the quote up, but that the arc of justice is moral, but it points towards justice. So I believe that. I believe that in the underbelly of the United States of America, in many of its systems, in many of its unconscious, there is a racism that exists. I believe you're talking to somebody who's got many family members, some who have passed, that are very, very close to me, that were outstanding police officers. You're talking to someone who has a cousin who's currently a correctional officer in the state of Maryland. I have great respect for the men of public safety. A number of them protected me and my family 24/7. I love them. But if you ask me that, on top of that, is there a systemic racism as opposed to just a few bad apples? And if there's systemic racism, not only in the police department, but in our education system and in society as a whole, I absolutely believe that with every fiber of my being. And I don't think those things are mutually exclusive.
Are you talking about the administration of the police department stuff, the legal laws, the way people are hired? And is that what you're talking about, is systemically racist?
The gestalt of it all, the belief system,
I thought we spent 50 years, Don, getting rid of that. And we started with affirmative action, and we started moving toward, inclusion and bringing people in. But I don't know how many black people were on the Baltimore City Police Department.
Patrick, that's like saying back in the day. That's the difference.
Finish?
Well,
go ahead.
We're going off the rails here. We're going to wrap this.
Let him go. Let him go. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, really.
No, I'm done.
Well, I'm not. I'm going to say that here's the difference, because I'm not. Listen, I enjoy this. I enjoy the back and forth. I think the difference the difference there is all the way back in the day when court cases talked about de jure segregation versus de facto segregation. And you can mandate things and you can pass laws, but that doesn't automatically affect hearts and minds, Patrick. That's my point. That takes much, much, much longer.
So you're talking about the individuals themselves.
Correct.
White people being racist toward black people.
I'm talking about and systemically, that kind of real change, substantive change, takes much, much longer. And I think recognition of that is important, and sensitivity training and that stuff is important. And that's why
at 52, I learn more every single day about how much my life would have been different had my skin tone been darker in the neighborhood I was in, even though I was Venezuelan. Had I played baseball in the 50s, they would have let me in. They would have called me Cuban and let me in. In the 30s or 40s, not so much. So, like, all of these things, you talk about the arc and how long things bend and justice and all of that. I've had a very different experience, people my age, and finding the way they've walked the earth the last 40 years because of the color of their skin, the way they've had to treat police officers, justice, the way they're treated at any point, anywhere, their security, the way they have to tell their children to behave when they're pulled over, and I've been pulled over for a taillight. So my view on it at 52 is far different than it was at 42 or 32, for sure. And I thought I knew it all at 32. Ask Don.
Yeah, I'm a little older than you are, Nestor, but I was born in the late 50s, and I remember clearly in Virginia, and I clearly remembered in the early 60s, I was a 4 or 5 year old boy getting called a spick all the time. solely because of my last name. And you know what? Taught me a couple of lessons, guys. Number one, it taught me to be a little more sensitive toward other people because I didn't like it. I'm a kid. I don't know what he's talking about. Spick evolved into Speedy and Poncho as I entered high school and stuff like that. Fine. But you know what else it taught me? It taught me a very valuable lesson about life. And that lesson is consider the source. If someone I respected called me a spick, then I'd have problems. But someone I didn't know, and that's always who it was, I don't know that person. They don't know me. I just brush it off. And you know what? When someone called me a spick and I let it get to me, you know what I was doing when I let it get to me? I was giving them control over my life. And I decided at an early age that I refused to do that.
Well, that's an interesting summary there, Patrick, because that's the Michelle Obama when they go low, we go high thing. And I think it really is an important discussion. I think it's important that we all discuss race and where we are as a nation and where we're heading. And I really appreciate you coming back on for the lively discussion today of polling. You have to understand, you've created a nightmare for me because Nestor is going to be quoting you for the next year or so. We look forward to having you back, though, buddy.
No, I do. And I just want to, and I don't know how much time you got, but I want to, are you grasping what I'm saying? Because Patrick is saying if Patrick did a nationwide poll, he suspects he would come back with Biden up 8 to 10. Again, because you can only measure what you can measure. And these guys, these people out there, yeah, we all have political, ideological bents. But hey, for the last 3 weeks, reputations are on the line. These people aren't playing games. They're not monkeying.
But you are making Nestor's point, and that's the thing. And
Biden better win. That's all I'm going to say. Biden better win.
You're making his point because Nestor keeps saying, I'm not sure you can trust the polls to be painting an accurate picture of what's going to happen on November the 3rd.
Well, if I trusted the polls, I just wouldn't vote because he's going to win by 25 points here. So what difference does it make? But, and I've had plenty of people in my life who have not just feigned that, they've lived that, they've done that. And that's why I think the whole polling thing from the beginning is troublesome to me. That's all, just as an industry and where it puts people's minds, including Moeller, which drives him crazy. I mean, it's an addiction. It's like golf. If you hated it that much, you shouldn't do it. You know what I mean?
Well, I love Don Moeller, number one. And number two, I think, Nessie, you and I are totally simpatico.
I got called a spick my whole childhood, too. We got that in common.
Exactly.
All right.
The problem, I think, is, can I finish? The problem is pollsters pretend to be something they're not. They pretend to be prophets. They pretend to be able to predict the future. And guys, no human being can.
Hoping that Patrick Gonzales is wrong on November the 3rd. Nestor, take us out of here. But I hope my good friend Patrick Gonzales is wrong next week.
I'll be watching football on the couch, eating some Royal Farms chicken and some Western fries, hand-cut and breaded right in store. Make sure you're giving Rofo some love. They're telling me to help them sell the coffee this month. So, hey, man, always fresh. I drink it every morning. Why do you think I get this way? The Kona blend at Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Our friends at Sporticulture and the Magma Lamps and Full Circle Tire and Auto as well. We're merging the streams. WNST.net, Baltimore Positive, converging in one platform, along with former Baltimore County Executive Don Moeller. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking elections in Baltimore Positive.